If I were to ask you, what in your life are you most fearful of? Where would your mind go? Would it go back to your childhood? To a traumatic incident? Did it just develop over time? If your fear were to have a physical form, would it have a face? Maybe an expression? To begin working with your fear, you first have to be able to identify it. Is it the kind of fear that feels like it's in front of you and prevents you from taking action, living life? Or is it the kind that feels like it's behind you and it propels you through life? Maybe it's that kind of fight or flight fear that your body has as a defense mechanism. These are fears that you can either appreciate and utilize, or they're fears that you have to subdue, conquer. My name is Kyle Kesterson, and I was born in Yuba City, California. This is a place known for junkies, school shootings, violent gangs. We had dead bodies float in our lake. We also had black widows. And as a kid, I used to capture them in jars, try to get them to wrestle. One afternoon, one of the spiders had leapt, and it landed right on my thigh, and I felt as if my body just went cold, stiff and paralyzed. And had I flinched, I likely would have been bitten. In that moment, fear saved me from an enormous amount of pain. That's the kind of fear you appreciate. However, with a traumatic incident, fear can take more of a permanent hold. And in a flash, I'd become terrified of spiders. And for over 10 years, it wasn't until one morning I came across a spider. It was just busy making its web. But for the first time, I just stopped, and I watched. And my curiosity became intrigue as I started to notice that all those creepy legs, the shape of that body, has a very distinct purpose. Watching how one leg would take the webbing and would feed it to the other, as the other legs would just dance across the perimeter of the forming web. Soon I began to appreciate the spider as an architect, as a creator. My fear had been conquered as I sought the opportunity to just shift my perspective. It's almost as if I'd have a flashlight and I pointed it into a dark corner to reveal that my fears were just the shadows projected. I asked you a bit ago what your fear might look like. And I want to show you the first time I saw what the fear inside me looked like. I was just a teenager, and I painted this. And it represented all the chaos, the pain that I felt. I mentioned the environment that I was born into. But when I was in 3rd grade, my parents did something that most from Yuba City don't do. They'd had enough, and they'd wanted more. And they were willing to risk everything and embrace the unknown, so we packed up and we left. We moved up to Washington, but we quickly fell on hard times. Soon my family was homeless, moving in and out of these homeless shelters, standing in line at food and clothing banks. But as my parents slaved away 2-3 jobs apiece, we slowly started to get back on our feet, which means we moved a lot. Actually, in total, I've been to 14 different schools, which means I've been the new kid 14 different times. And when you're the new kid from a lower class family in large schools full of upper middle class kids, well, I was either targeted and bullied or was just brushed aside. As a kid, I remember feeling insignificant, rejected. So I began to act out and challenge anyone, everything. And through my arguments, my pranks, my disruption, my blatant disrespect, I began to get kicked out of classes, banned from buses, after-school activities, sports. The isolation became so overwhelming, I just dropped out. I dropped out with one of the lowest grade point averages and thickest disciplinary files the school district has ever seen. Can you believe that even one of my teachers said, Kyle, by the time you're 20, you'll just be flipping burgers, in jail, or dead. And I went to a really deep depression. I locked myself in my room for months. But it was in the thick of this depression, I came across an artist by the name of Alex Pardee. His work is super dark. It's twisted. Yet it managed to capture my angst, and it moved me to pick up a pen and start scribbling. And through copying much of his work and others, I began to teach myself how to draw, how to paint, then sculpt, craft, and build. And it was through art and creative expression that I started to release all of what had been pent up inside of me. As I gave my fears faces, it felt as if I had the power to control them. Being able to create something from nothing and then share it with the rest of the world, this made me feel valuable. We all have fears that we fight to conquer, we work to subdue. I still haven't conquered that fear. Sometimes I still just don't feel good enough. But I pick up a pen and I start doodling. We also have fears that if you use, it can give you a supernatural drive. The kind of drive where time disappears. We turn mountains into molehills and anything becomes achievable. My own drive, it led me to overcome my failures in school. I got a scholarship to go to Cornish College of the Arts, study graphic design and illustration. Be able to catch the eye of a creative director at a toy company called Funko, being around professional artists, being able to show my work in galleries. My fear also led me through the doors of Startup Weekend, into the world of entrepreneurialism. And here, everything in my life just seemed to fit. It makes sense. Being limited in my resources, having to be scrappy and creative, being the outlier, challenging the status quo, knowing how to be disruptive, these became advantages and assets. But with it came a whole new world of fear. Fear that I used to keep me motivated and focused, such as the weight and responsibility I have to my team and their families, my promise to my investors, my place in my community. But the biggest fear that I have, and it drives me every single day, is that if I don't succeed, I won't be here for my parents when they need me. You see, they've sacrificed so much in their own life so that I'd have a chance at one, and soon it gets to be my turn to take care of them. If you have the kind of fear that motivates you, hold on to it, appreciate it, remind yourself of it every single day. It's the kind of fear that can give your life purpose and direction. It can allow you to cherish those that you love. It can allow you to create impact on the people and world around you in a way that you just couldn't do alone. Before I came out on stage today, I was terrified. I didn't know if I was just going to humiliate myself. But when I was talking to my mom about it, she said, if you ever feel that fear or shyness, all you need is 10 seconds of boldness, and it gets easier. She was absolutely right. For just 10 seconds, I faced my fear head on. And I came out here the boldest way that I could by trying to humiliate myself. You all laugh now, but you didn't laugh me off stage, which I'm extremely appreciative, by the way. Identify the fear that lurks within you. Is it the kind that prevents you from taking action, from living your life? Or is it the kind that can propel you through it? Is it the kind of fear that you can appreciate, utilize? Or is it the kind you have to subdue, conquer? In the face of your fear, proceed and be bold. Thank you.